So when I made my video on wavefront object loading into GameMaker, I did mention that you couldn't do things like color and transparency using purely OBJ loading into GameMaker code. And while that's probably not a deal breaker, most of the time when you want to colorize your models, you'll probably be using textures instead. And wavefront object does support texture coordinates. It can be nice to have that trick on hand if you want to, say, use one texture and have it serve multiple purposes, among other things. Fortunately, if I can find the file that I'm looking for. Okay, here we are. Fortunately, when you save a wavefront object in Blender, or presumably other 3D modeling programs, you will find both the OBJ file itself and a material file, material template library file, if I must be correct about these things. And this, like the object file, is just plain text, and it contains some information on extra parameters that you can load with the model. I'm going to close that for now. And some of these parameters do include things such as color and transparency. And today I'm going to show you how to make use of those. So let's go and open up this, okay, it's already opened, the load OBJ script that I made. And let's give it a couple other bells and whistles. We'll say var MTL name is going to be argument 1. So we'll pass it not only the object file, but the material template library file. And underneath this line, we'll say, I need to make this bigger, don't I? That's better. Let's also make this full screen. I don't know why it resets every time I open up GameMaker Studio 2. But we'll say var MTL file equals file text open read. Because, again, this is just plain text, and you can do that. Let's see, before I forget, I'm going to close the file at some point. File, text, close. And this should be MTL name, not file name. Do you not want to try and load a material template library from an object file? And you may notice that this isn't it. You may notice that there are a bunch of pieces of information stored in here. NS, KA, KD, KS, D, Illum. If you go on the Wikipedia page, you'll see a whole host of other parameters that you can find in this thing. I'm only going to be concerned with 2. And that is going to be, I'm going to go into Blender. I've taken a material, I've made it an ugly sort of greenish color, and I'm actually going to dial the transparency down to, say, 30%. 0.3. Let's go with the third. Okay, 0.361 works too. I guess that's the nearest fraction of 256. But anyway, let's go and export this. Export this as wavefront object. We're going to call it, let's call it MaryObj, material.obj, because that's what I was messing around with this as. And where was I? I've gotten distracted. Oh yes, instead of, if I come back here a third time, instead of indexing these by, well, index materials, you can store multiple materials in a single MTL file, and they are arranged by a name instead of an index. If I were to open up, not Mary2, but how about Mary MTL, you'd see that there is this new MTL keyword up here. There is a name. It's called paint because that's what I called it. KD happens to be the color, or the diffuse color, which is what we're interested in. KA is ambient color, I believe. I'm not going to go through all of what you will find in an MTL file because only 2 of them happen to be relevant to GameMaker, at least for what I'm doing. So now we're going to create a couple DS maps. Var MTL alpha equals DS map create. We're using maps because instead of, as I said, indexing by index, we're indexing by name. MTL color equals DS map create. I do that a lot. I type mapo instead of map. And down at the bottom here, no, not at the bottom here, but at the very bottom of the script, where we destroy these list of vertex information, DS map destroy. MTL color. There we go. No memory leaks today, good sir. And why don't I just move this down at the bottom to the bottom for the sake of looking neat and stuff like that. Anyway, next we're going to loop through the file as we did with the obj file. So while not file text EOF. And it is really tempting to just copy and paste from my notes today, but I think that would not be a good idea. We'll say var line equals line equals file text read string. We'll say file text read line, because that's how we access every line in the text file. Next, we're going to split the string, so I'm just going to borrow this from down here where I split the string in the obj file parser. And again, if you already have a script that can do that better than this, I suggest you use that. I'm not going to spend too much time describing what this does. Basically, it looks through every line in the string and sees if it's a space character, and if it's a space, it creates a I don't want to say breakpoint because that's something else. Can I create a breakpoint here? I can create a breakpoint. That's something else. But it'll kind of saw off the string and put it in an array. I just said I was going to not describe what it does and then went and described it. Now, we can do what we did in the object file parser and say switch terms of 0. Because that is the first term in the array that we created by splitting the string. And there's a few things that we should be interested in. One, break. One is the new material keyword, and this is just going to tell us that we are defining a different material than we were a minute ago in the last line, obviously. So to deal with this, I'm just going to go and create another variable and call this, did I spell that right? MTL. And we're going to give it, no, we're not going to give it an empty string. We're going to call it none. And that is simply going to be the key in the DS maps that we're writing to. So we can say, if you find the new material keyword down here, MTL name equals terms of 1. Now, the color, as I think I mentioned before, case KD. The color is signified by the KD identifier thing command in the material file, and as you can imagine, these next three words in the line here are going to be red, green, and blue, or red, blue, and green. I can't remember which order it is. I think it's red, green, and blue. Is it? It is red, green, and blue. So we can say var red equals real terms of 1. And because Blender, well, not just Blender, but material files store colors between 0 and 1 instead of between 0 and 255, we're going to have to multiply real of terms of 1 by 255. Var green, real terms of 2 times 255. Var blue, times 255. And then the color that will result from this, I'm sure you can imagine where this is going. Color equals make color RGB, red, green, blue. You can put this all in one line if you want to. I'm just going to put it in multiple lines here so it's a little bit easier to read. And lastly, we need to register this into the DS map. And to do that, we're going to take the name that's been defined here by the new material keyword and say DS map set MTL color, and the name is going to be MTL name and the color is going to be color. Alright, so we've now read the color information out of the material file, and the last thing that we're interested in is the alpha, which is D. I forget what D stands for. I believe it's dissolve. I will look that up in editing and put it on the screen, but I believe D stands for dissolve. And KD stands for K. I forget what K itself stands for, but the D is diffuse. Anyway, var alpha equals real terms of 1. You don't have to multiply this by 255 because the alpha in GameMaker is just 0 to 1, the way it is in the material template library files. And ds map set MTL alpha, MTL name, and alpha. Again, you could put this all in one line if you wanted to, but for the sake of being a little bit more clear about what's going on, I'm going to break it up into 2. And because you should always have a default case unless you're using like an enum and covering all bases, I'm just going to write an empty default case and put a comment here that says something like, what did I write in my notes? Anyway, as this comment here says, and as I've said before, there are plenty of things that you can find in the material template library files, but unless you're writing any crazy shaders with specular color and whatever KE stands for and whatever NI stands for, I can't remember, you're probably not going to want to worry about those. I don't even know what you would do with those properties, although it would be fun to find out someday. Maybe I'll take a week and mess with shaders, like real shaders, someday, but that is not today. Anyway, if I were to scroll down here, down to the switch statement in the object parser, we've now read out the information from the material template library file. I'm just going to call it MTL because that's easier to say. We've now read the information out of the MTL file, but now we need to do something with it. And to do something with it, we're going to make use of another keyword that can be found in the object file itself, and that is going to be, I have way too many Windows Explorer tabs open. Where is it? I'm just going to search. Use MTL. And you can usually find this before the list of faces in the object file, although not necessarily. So this is just going to tell us which material in the MTL file that we're going to be using for the color and the alpha and the ambient color and what have you. So I'm going to go and scroll back up to the top because I'm efficient and say var active MTL equals none, because none is the default material that objects use. Uses a white diffuse color and a fully opaque alpha. And speaking of that, I should probably put these default properties in the alpha and color maps. So dsmap add and dsmap add color white. Okay. Where was I? I was going down here. The use MTL is going to be simple. It's just going to tell the game which material to use here, and it should be active MTL. It should just set the value of active MTL, and that is going to be terms of 1, right? Terms is the okay, it is terms here. Terms is the split array that I was using, and here we should go up a little bit and say var color. I'm reusing variable names here, and that's okay because GameMaker lets me do that. We'll see white. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Var alpha equals 1, and if dsmap exists, MTL color, active material, active MTL rather. If the material that has been defined by use MTL exists in the DS map, then we are going to say color equals dsmap find value, and MTL color active MTL. And this is just a failsafe so that if for whatever reason you, for example, give the object loader the wrong material file for the wrong object, it won't go haywire because there will not be an undefined value stored in the variable color in alpha. And we are just going to do the same thing with the alpha map. There. No, there. And here,
Hey.
instead of inserting the color white and 1 into the vertex color attributes, we'll say color and alpha. Okay. I realized that I'm saving over my tutorial 6. I should do a save as. Give me a moment. This should be 7. You'd think I would have done this before. Anyway, included files. I believe... What did I call? I'm going to get rid of these two. Yes, we can safely delete those. And I'm going to add 2 more included files. And that is going to be one piece material MTL. I mean, material MTL, Mary MTL. And now, when I go back into the... where is it? Create event here. We're going to load the object Mary MTL. And it's going to take the second argument, Mary MTL.mtl. And now, is there anything I'm missing? I don't believe there's anything I'm missing. I will run the game, and it should be an ugly greenish color instead of a plain white, and it should be partially transparent. Either that or it's going to crash. Excellent. Okay, actually, it's entirely red. Why is it entirely red? Did I read out the color values in the wrong order or something? I'm going to turn off lighting and fog. Let's turn off lighting and fog. Fog, don't want you. And lighting, don't want you either. Oh, alpha. Oops. Alright, that is a logical error. That is not a syntax error, so GameMaker would have no way of knowing. Now, there's always something that goes wrong. Whoops, there it is. It is partially transparent, as you can see. It is unlit, and it is a very ugly greenish color. That, as they say, is that. As I said before, if you want to mess around with the other properties, you could probably write a shader to do so. There's not much more for me to say about this. I'm going to go and actually enable lighting and fog just to see what it looks like here. Because I'm kind of curious what will happen when it's blended with a red color, that ugly green. Probably a brown. Just a guess. Yep, it's a, okay, that could be a worse brown, but it's a little amber color when it's blended. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I'm just fooling around. If you want to download this code, if you haven't been following along for whatever reason, you probably have been. You can find the code in the description of this video. I assume there are other reasons that somebody would want to download the code, maybe to see very helpful comments or something like that I've been trying to remember to add. But nevertheless, I don't even know what I'm saying now. My name is Dragonite. This is the Going Merry. I hope you all enjoyed that and found it useful, and I will see you all later.